Chatty Queens.
Chatty Queens. A warm and fabulous welcome to everybody. My name is Lwando Scott, and this is Chatty Queens, the show that gives you a taste of real kitchen talk. In this show, we will be focusing on the social and political landscape of South Africa. We will be bringing you different guests to talk about fashion, to talk about culture, to talk about wine, to talk about food, maybe even a little bit of travel.
If we do get to travel.
Yes. We love all things queer, don't we, Yaya?
We certainly do. Cheers, babe.
Cheers.
My name is Ayanda Hute. I am well known as Yaya. I prefer to kind of do this more often and just sitting and chilling at home. Now, this show to me means a lot. It means that it's about representation that we never really grew up seeing on TV. It is about discussions of things that are endeared to our hearts, which is the fashion, the food, and all the things that you've mentioned. And also it's a space whereby we can talk about issues that we have within our community as gay people. There's the inner homophobia that we have amongst ourselves. There's homophobia around in our workspace and our families. There's transphobia within the world actually in general. There's so much ugliness. But now we are hoping that we would have conversations and tangible solutions if there are any, right? And then we can actually just have a space whereby it will be home for queer people in general.
Absolutely.
But most importantly, we're gonna have to look fabulous doing it. So, right, cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Chatty Queens.
Yeah, Chatty Queens.
On today's show, we're talking about this crazy world that we've inherited. We're living under lockdown. We have an alcohol ban there for a while. We even had a cigarette ban, which I know a lot of people were not happy about.
Yep.
I mean, a couple of months ago, I wasn't talking about PPEs, but now I can tell you everything about PPEs.
What's PPEs again?
PPEs is the personal protective equipment that doctors and nurses often wear when they're dealing with COVID-19 patients.
Oh, is that the one that Naomi Campbell wore at the airport?
Yes, exactly, that one, yeah. And you remember she was like sanitizing the whole plane when she was inside.
Yeah, and we ridiculed her.
Yeah, everybody thought she was a bit nuts, yeah. But she was onto something.
Right, she was ahead of time. For me, it is that we get to see pandemic in different lenses and the world in general. Right? And today's show, we're going to have people that will come to tell their testimony and their stories of how they managed to make the possible out of the impossible and becoming creative despite of these hard times. But before that, friend, I just want to check in with you. How are you mentally and wise? Because lockdown it comes with a whole lot of emotional cha-cha or trauma.
Yes.
We get to be in ourselves and you know, being single is quite different from being married. And
well, I wouldn't want to call it marriage. I would say long-term relationship maybe.
So fat and sad.
Well, yes, fat and sad is how some of us are doing it. But you know, Yaya, I think that you know, it is a bit different from people who are in relationships. I think people who are married, it is a bit different because at least you have somebody there. But I also do think that you are affected because here was someone who used to go to work and all of a sudden you're all locked down in one house and you have to deal with each other. In fact, you can't miss your partner anymore because you're all right there. So I think that even if you're in a relationship or you're married or you have a fat and sad situation, you're being affected by the virus.
So
in the
sex
lockdown.
is bomb.
Well, I don't know if it's bomb, but
for me, being single is quite, it comes with a whole different structure, right? Because you're now lonely and you have to think about everything, you know, during, including the COVID-19, family members, depending if you are actually staying alone or you're staying with friends or you're staying with family. But it actually comes a whole lot. You think about those exes that what could have happened.
I was going to say, like, I mean, there are apps, you know, that people can use, but I would imagine that it's pretty scary to meet anybody because, like, are you going to make out with someone?
Well, honey, we could use our own PPEs, but that is a different show. Let's get to our first guest then. Chatty Queens.
Chatty Queens. Our next guest is Cait Pansegrouw. She is a multi-talented casting director and producer. She has worked all over South Africa, in Brazil, and also in Lesotho. Her work has traveled to International Film Festival, Berlinale, Sundance, Venice, and also to the Durban Film Festival. Welcome, Cait, to this wonderful show.
Thank you so much for having me, Chomi.
Yay!
Chatty
Cheers!
Queens.
Oh, well, cheers! Finally, you get to see our show.
So fun.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy that we get to actually all meet and be in the space where you can just be yourself. Well,
Also just to see people IRL, right? In the
Right.
times of COVID.
right.
Yeah.
How has that have been though for you? Because it's been very hectic for all of us, and we've mentioned, Lwando and I, like how COVID-19 has been taxing our emotions and also our coins.
Totally.
And then in your industry, it must be a bit.
Yeah,
hectic.
I mean, I'm extremely fortunate that in my case, this was never going to be a year where I had anything ready to shoot. So it was always going to be a development heavy year, so lots of writing. It has been complicated on the financing side because no one wants to part with their coins, as we all know. But we also been focusing a lot more on our institutional work through the Realness Institute. So we did the 5th iteration of our Pan-African Screenwriters Lab, which we've just finished.
Look at you!
Thank
Cheers!
you.
Well, shall we drink to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also launched the first ever Creative Producers in Daba program, which is also a Pan-African program. So yeah, lots on the go, really exciting. Got a film traveling to festivals. I'm releasing another film next month. This is not a burial, it's a resurrection. It's my Mary Twyler's last film. God rest her soul. So I'd like to pay tribute to her and say cheers to Mary.
Cheers to Mary.
She's one of the most formidable, amazing, talented, beautiful women I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, and she's astounding in our film. It opened the Durban Film Festival last week, so I'm just really excited that local audiences are getting to experience the film, and to date, since launching in Sundance in January, we've taken home 9 international awards.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So 20 plenty for you, a lot.
20 plenty, yeah.
So we also know that aside from that movie, there's an iconic Inaiba. Right?
Yeah.
Then that movie caused a whole lot of stir and a whole lot of conversation.
It did.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of it. Yeah.
So for me, it was, again, as I'm saying, this platform is a space where we can talk about sexuality, advanced black queer land.
Yeah.
And that is one conversation that we had to talk about.
Yeah.
Firstly, as a white woman in that show, in that movie, I'm sorry, how was the backlash and how did you cope and what did you do to prepare for the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think myself and my business partner, who are both white, and further adding to the complexity, my business partner is not even South African, he's Brazilian. And John Trengrove, who wrote and directed the film, is white as well. And we were all very much aware of our whiteness all the way through the making of the film. I think what was most frustrating is that people conveniently forget at times of controversy that film is a collaborative art form. And this was a film that was co-written by 2 Xhosa men who've both been to the mountain. It's based on a novel written by a Xhosa man. And our entire cast, there was a rule that everyone in our cast, which was an ensemble of almost 200 people, all had to be Xhosa, all had to have gone to the mountain. This, for me, why I got involved is because I'm an intersectional feminist, and this was a film that was really giving the finger to the patriarchy in a really potent way, and so that's why I felt like, regardless of what role I was going to end up having on the film, I just needed to be a part of it. I saw it being pitched as a project at the Durban Film Mart 6-7 years ago, and approached John immediately and said, look, whatever you need, this film needs to exist, and I'm happy to collaborate in any way, shape or form. And so I initially came onto the project as the casting director, which was pretty complex because most known actors wanted nothing to do with the film because of how controversial it was.
Even at that stage?
Even at that stage. We were already getting threats at the development stage, people finding the synopsis online or whatever and already getting really aggressive about it. So the casting was a long, tedious process because we needed to find people that not only were okay to be in front of camera, but who were also fully on board with what we were saying with the film and what we wanted it to achieve. So that took almost 2 years for me to find these people. And then I stayed on board the project and became one of the producers on it, and that was kind of how the marriage between myself and my business partner happened, was on that film. So yeah, it was a very beautiful, meaningful experience, like in all aspects of my life. The cast really became like my family. I'm still very blessed to be very close to a number of them.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask. How close are you guys?
We are. Nakane and I speak all the time. Nisa J and I speak all the time. Bungile and I speak all the time. Like, they're my babies. I love them so much.
Chatty Queens.
Chatty Queens. It was interesting how people kind of narrowed in on the sex scenes for the film.
Yeah.
That was like the one gripe that people had.
Well, totally, because the whole controversy was actually about homophobia. It had nothing to do with the ritual, in my humble opinion.
Do you have
Huh?
opinions?
In my opinion, let me correct myself. No, it's, I mean, the sex scenes, if you look at them clinically, are not even explicit. You don't see a penis, you don't see, like...
There's so much else going on.
Totally,
right?
totally. So, no, it was definitely an interesting experience. It was really fucked up to be on the receiving end of people not only sending death threats, but like really detailed threats of rape, of necklacing me, and people coming to my house. A lot of people knew where I lived and sort of loitering outside my house waiting to harm me. It was, and for my cast as well, you know, I'll never forget, someone was out in Melville and they heard a car backfiring and called me and said, I think someone's trying to shoot at me. Like the anxiety and the trauma that we all experienced, and I think the cast more than anyone else, because they were so visible to everyone, it was horrendous, and it really lifted a veil on our society, on our police force, on our legal system, on our justice system. It was kind of a very rude awakening for me in those spaces, because I met the most incredible activists through the process of, you know, taking legal action to have the film unbanned, and it was traumatic, and praise God for my therapist, but it was also like really empowering, because it made me learn so much about myself and what is important to me as a storyteller, you know. So I'm forever thankful to the process for that reason.
So it didn't ruin your career?
Not at all.
Yeah.
If nothing else, people know not to fax with me, and that's you know, always a good thing. Always a good thing to have. Eh?
Also, obviously, we went to see the movie. We got, because we know Cait, right, from first hand. She's queer crazy. Okay. Yeah. But we get to see the movie, and for us, we had to review moments, me and Lwando and Tiana and all our friends. We get to say that, you know what, it's crazy how this whole thing has been taken out of context, in the sense that people do not even have to watch the movie to have opinions about it, and also get to miss what the movie is about, which is like a love story and the things that we actually need as society as well. So kudos to you for being that brave.
Thank you.
And also for being the pillar of strength, because now we need more people like you.
Thank you.
And yes, we could use black people to be more strength. Okay. Here we are. In whatever ways that takes us, that's what we will do.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, it's like you were saying, right, about the kind of what takes over the film really is the homophobia, and not necessarily, you know, sitting down and pinpointing, okay, we don't like this, we don't like that. Why did you do this instead of that? Right? It is just like this outright ban, right, on the film.
And watered down conversation around something that is so deeply complex, you know, which was really frustrating as us as the filmmakers, wanting to spark really meaningful discussions amongst people, but just constantly having to talk about the so-called explicitness of the sex scenes. But you know, and I think the film is so special because it what it stood for became much larger than the film. I mean, essentially, we were really fighting for our freedom of expression as artists, but I think we were also fighting against the erasure of black queer bodies in this country.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so the awards are great, 28 awards. But it's really about
Humble.
yes. Humble Cait.
But it's really about like the conversations that we started and the black queer youth reaching out to us and saying, thank you for telling my story, thank you for putting us on screen, you know, that's what filmmaking is about for me.
Absolutely. I mean, not to plug myself, but I've written 2 academic pieces.
I know, girl, I know.
So it's done the rounds.
It has.
It's done some great work in terms of facilitating the conversation.
At Harvard, at Cambridge, it really has, you know, it's become such a huge thing. And I think, this conversation around censorship and around preventing people from accessing art or media or whatever, a small faction of society in this day and age still being able to control what we have access to and what we're allowed to say and how we're allowed to say it, is we should all be deeply concerned about that. And so I'm really feel fortunate that our work has been, you know, stirring up that conversation, which I think is long overdue and which is something that needs to continue, a conversation that needs to continue.
Well, babes, thank you so much for coming around. Right?
Thank you.
Thank
you.
So lovely to chat with you.
I'm very proud of you queens for the
Thank
show,
you.
and I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's such an important space that you're occupying, so thank you.
Today we do have scalcop. It's very nice. Served on La Creuset, flag owned. So, so you guys.
Cut the tongue.
Yeah, it's my favorite part. So you guys, you want to double in?
Get it, girl.
Yeah, you have it all.
Looks delicious, doesn't it?
Cheers, girl. Cheers.
You're welcome back anytime.
Of course,
Don't
you gotta
careful
hold.
what you wish for. Yeah. They have champagne.
Gotta hold, yeah.
Listen.